She walked into the dealership like any ordinary person. Worn-out jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and old trainers on her feet. But the moment she stepped inside, she could feel the stares cutting through her. The salesman barely let her speak. He gave her a look from head to toe, the kind of look that said he already knew exactly what she could, or rather, couldn't, afford. "I'm sorry, but I don't think this is the right place for you," he said, motioning towards the exit with a fake smile. "These cars start at $300,000. Behind him, a few staff chuckled. Customers turned to watch the scene unfold, like it was a spectacle. Her cheeks burned. She didn't say a word. She simply left. The next morning, the low hum of a Rolls-Royce Phantom echoed at the entrance of the showroom. The car came to a smooth stop. When the rear door opened, the salesman felt the ground shift beneath him. It was her. The same woman from the day before, stepping out of one of the most expensive cars on the planet. What he didn't know yet was that her name was Margaret Collins. Known to friends as Maggie, and to thousands of families as the woman who had changed their lives. Maggie was the founder of a charitable foundation supporting children with disabilities, one of the largest in the country. She was 35 years old and could afford any vehicle in that showroom with a single signature. She hadn't returned out of pride. She came back for something that truly mattered. The midnight blue coupe she'd spotted in the window the day before. It wasn't just a car. It was a gift. For her sister Caroline, a breast cancer survivor. A symbol of love, strength, and life. Maggie walked in with the same ponytail, the same simple outfit, the same calm expression. But this time, the confidence in her step made the entire room feel smaller. Blake Thompson, the sales manager, swallowed hard. He straightened his tie and adjusted his tailored jacket, putting on a forced smile. "May I help you?" he asked, his tone polite but hollow. "I'm interested in that blue coupe over there," Maggie replied calmly. "That one's $285,000, he said, clearly uneasy. "It's a limited edition. Only 15 in the world." She nodded, unfazed. But Blake kept going. "You might want to check out our used vehicles branch, just a few blocks away." She caught his eyes scanning her clothes, her trainers. Judging her, again. "I'd like to see the interior of this one," she said, still polite. "Only by appointment," he lied, trying to stall her. "Our serious clients usually schedule private viewings." At that very moment, a well-dressed couple walked through the door. Blake turned into a different man. He left Maggie standing there and rushed over to greet them with warm smiles and rehearsed charm. Maggie didn't move. She simply watched. She had seen it all before. Judgment by appearance. Quick assumptions. But she didn't need to shout or make a scene. She acted in silence and let the impact speak for itself. And that day, everyone in that showroom was about to learn a lesson they would never forget. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrington, what a pleasure to see you again," Blake exclaimed, with the kind of excitement reserved for people whose names sounded like bank accounts. While he rushed to greet the well-dressed couple, a younger salesman, previously brushed aside, approached quietly. His name was Daniel. His smile was modest, but genuine. "If you'd like, I can show you the car," he offered politely. "Please do," replied Maggie, calm and composed, despite the growing tension in the room. As Daniel began explaining the features of the vehicle, Blake, on the other side of the showroom, was already leading the Harringtons straight to the exact same car he had just told Maggie was unavailable. She watched it unfold in silence. Moments later, Blake returned, interrupting the conversation. "I'm terribly sorry, madam," he said with rehearsed politeness, "but that car is currently being shown to other clients." Maggie looked him in the eye and answered without raising her voice. "I'm interested in that model as a birthday gift for my sister. It's next month." Blake chuckled, dismissively. Look, I understand people like to dream, but this is a serious business. That vehicle costs more than most homes. And frankly, you're becoming a distraction. The atmosphere shifted. Conversations quieted. Several customers had stopped to listen. I'm ready to make the purchase in full, Maggie said, still composed, without a trace of arrogance. Blake laughed out loud. In full? Madam, this isn't a street market. People who can afford that kind of car don't show up looking like that. Maggie's cheeks flushed. But it wasn't embarrassment. It was fury, burning quietly behind her steady gaze. I believe my money is worth just as much as anyone else's, she said firmly. Blake stepped closer, puffing out his chest. You're wasting my time. Come back when you're dressed appropriately, he said coldly, his words like blades. The entire showroom fell into silence. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington backed away, clearly uneasy. No one said a word. Then, from the back of the room, a commanding voice echoed. Is there a problem here? Heads turned. It was Richard Mason, the owner of the dealership. Impeccably dressed. Calm. Observant. And clearly not impressed. Blake straightened up immediately. No problem at all, sir, he stammered. I was simply explaining our procedures to the lady. Maggie stood tall, head high, voice unwavering. Collins. Margaret Collins. And with those 3 simple words, everything changed. Because in that moment, anyone paying attention finally understood exactly who she was, and just how badly they had misjudged her. Richard froze. He swallowed hard, realizing the situation had completely slipped out of his hands. There might have been some sort of misunderstanding, he stammered. Oh, I understood perfectly, Maggie replied, steady as ever. Your manager made your policy very clear. But Blake wasn't done. Still convinced he held the upper hand, he went further. If you're really interested, which I highly doubt, bring proof of income. And next time, dress like someone who can actually afford it. The air in the showroom grew heavy. Maggie looked around. Pretending not to hear, people glanced sideways. Judging. Watching. And Blake? He wore that smug little smile of someone who believed he'd put her in her place. Right. I see how it is, she said calmly. She turned and walked away with dignity. Outwardly calm, but inside, her heart was bruised. Just as she crossed the doorway, she caught Blake whispering to another staff member. Some people really don't know their place in the world. Outside, Maggie took a deep breath, pulled out her phone and dialed. Love, do you have a minute? On the other end, Alexander Collins, businessman, philanthropist, and her husband, stopped everything. What happened? She told him, no drama, just facts. And he listened, in silence. This isn't just about me, she said softly. It's about everyone who gets treated like this every single day and can't do a thing about it. Alexander paused. Then came a slight smile in his voice. No big scene, but let's teach them a lesson. The next morning, at exactly 17 minutes past 10, a custom metallic blue Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the dealership, gleaming under the sun like a mirror. Blake spotted it and nearly tripped over himself trying to get to the entrance. He was all smiles, certain the deal of the year had just walked in. A tall, elegant man stepped out. Sharp suit, sharp presence. I'm here about the Azure Coupe, he said. Brilliant choice. Blake beamed. I'll show you personally. That won't be necessary, the man interrupted. I know exactly where it is. My wife came in yesterday. You refused to serve her. Margaret Collins. Jeans. White t-shirt. Blake turned ghostly pale. The blood drained from his face. Daniel, the young salesman who had tried to help Maggie the day before, stepped in quietly. His right. She was dismissed because of how she looked. Alexander's voice remained calm, but his words were heavy with meaning. My wife runs a foundation that has raised over £50 million to help children with disabilities. She lives simply because she chooses to. At that moment, Richard Mason, the dealership owner, appeared, looking shaken and clearly trying to fix the situation. I can make this right. Maybe, Alexander replied. But not just by selling a car. He made an unexpected suggestion. How about your manager volunteers at our next charity event? Not as a guest. As staff. Blake had no way out. He accepted. 30 days later, at the foundation's gala, there he was, not in a suit, but in a volunteer's t-shirt. Serving food. Pushing wheelchairs. Listening to real stories. Maggie approached, graceful as ever. So, Blake, how's it been? He looked up and took a breath. Humbling. And necessary. Learn anything? That someone's worth isn't measured by what they wear. And respect, it should always come first. Alexander joined them with a subtle smile. Oh, and about that corporate fleet we mentioned. We're still interested. Maybe you can take care of it. Blake opened his mouth, but for the first time, had no words, only silence, and something to think about. That night, he couldn't sleep. The words, the looks, the shame, they kept playing in his mind like a film on repeat. But in the middle of the silence, something clicked. How often do we judge someone just by what we see on the outside? By their clothes, their walk, their simplicity? And it was then, in that quiet moment, that he realized, if we stop looking only with our eyes and start seeing with our hearts, we'll find that extraordinary people walk among us every single day, unnoticed. If this story made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Respect isn't optional, and a person's true wealth is shown in how they treat others, especially when they think no one important is watching.